Today on All Things 80s, we've got 10 disappointing toys from the 80s. Welcome back to All Things 80s. Now today we're going to look at 10 toys that were a complete disappointment back in the 80s. Now I should warn you that some of these toys are genuinely crap, and a lot of them were a disappointment because I was what you would call a gullible child, and my expectations far exceeded the reality of some of these toys. So anyway, let's start with number 10. So first on the list is Seaspray the Transformer. Now this was a disappointment because it was my first ever Transformer, and the circumstances of me getting it was that I think I'd been told, if you're a good boy for a week, we'll get you a Transformer. So of course I was a very good boy for a week, and I remember coming home from school that Friday because my mum had been going into Edinburgh that day. And I ran home from school waiting to get my first Transformer. And in my mind, I'm thinking maybe it's Optimus Prime, maybe it's Soundwave. Opened the door, and my mum hands me Seaspray. So it was disappointing because it wasn't what I was expecting, but it was also disappointing as much as it was a very simple transformation, so there was no sort of challenge in transforming it. But also the fact was, it was a civilian hovercraft cast in blue, yellow, and white plastic, and it kind of just looked really, really lame. Even if it had been like a military hovercraft, that would have been something, but as it was, Seaspray was a massive disappointment for me. Next up, we have those sparking ray guns. Now, the first time I got one of these, I was very, very young, and it's quite possible it was still in the 1970s. But this was a case of me being somewhat gullible, and also my expectations far exceeding the reality of the toy. So when I'd heard about these sparking ray guns, I genuinely thought that I was going to get a gun that would spark out, bolts of lightning. And of course, as it was basically a glorified cigarette lighter without the butane fuel. You would pull the trigger and that would scratch the flint and cause it to spark, and the sort of clear plastic it was made from, you could see the sparks, but only if you played with it in the dark. You couldn't see a damn thing outside, and it was just probably one of the first times in my life that I felt let down, because I was really expecting this glorious thunderbolt firing weapon, and instead I got what was little more than a cigarette lighter. Now we have the Jaws game, and this is a case of the toy being extremely disappointing. I'd seen the commercial on TV for it. I thought, wow, that looks really exciting. You've got to be really careful, use a sort of dentist's pick to remove the sea garbage from Jaws' mouth without him snapping and taking a couple of digits off. Oops, excuse me. And I remember getting it, I think it was Christmas time one year, and assembled it all. And I should have known when the jaws were hinged with just little rubber bands that it wasn't going to be that great. But anyway, got the whole thing set up and began playing with it. And, it wasn't a difficult game. They gave you the impression you had to have a really steady hand and all this and that. It was utter crap. Basically, the jaws were hinged with rubber bands, and the weight of the plastic pieces kept the jaws shut. So when you took the last piece out, it would just close. But it closed so slowly, and there was absolutely no danger of anyone getting injured playing this game. And for that reason, I found it all just a bit disappointing. So next on the list for a very disappointing toy was the TV Times television quiz game. And for me, this was a letdown for two reasons. One, I desperately wanted a set of Trivial Pursuit because that was the game of 1986. And instead of getting that for Christmas, I received this TV Times quiz game. And the other reason it being a big letdown was the fact that the categories or the shows that were having questions asked about them were shows that I simply didn't watch. You know, as a kid, I couldn't tell you the first damn thing about Dynasty or Coronation Street. And I certainly wasn't, up to date on current affairs, so questions about Margaret Thatcher would have just flown over my head. So the TV Times quiz game was a huge letdown. Now we're going to look at M.A.S.K. Now, M.A.S.K is one of my favourite toy lines. It was one of these toy lines that I got into towards the end of my time playing with toys, so I didn't really get enough of them as I would have liked, but there's always time for that in the future. But a huge, huge disappointment was the 2-pack containing T-Bob and Scott Tracker. So I think it was a birthday I got this, and I'd already had a couple of the 2-packs of figures complete with their own mask, and I had the Condor vehicle. So it was a birthday, and my mum and dad knew I was into M.A.S.K, and I opened the package, and there was T-Bob and Scott Tracker. Now, I cannot put into words how disappointed I was, but I also remember I was of an age where I was aware of not hurting people's feelings, so I had to pretend I was really happy, but deep down inside, man, this pack of toys really sucked. Uh, T-Bob himself required very little transformation to go from robot into bike, and the figure was a little boy. Now, as a little boy myself, the last thing I wanted was a figure of another little boy, and it was just a horrible, horrible set, especially given the fact that it probably cost the same, or even more in fact, as a 2-pack of proper M.A.S.K figures. So T-Bob and Scott Tracker, hugely disappointing for me as a child. Now we're going to look at the Rolf Harris Magic Paintbrush set. And since I've been away from the UK, I believe that Rolf Harris is now a well, yeah, he's a bit of a dick, but a convicted pedo. So we shouldn't really be giving him too much fanfare here. But Rolf Harris had a show, I think it was a cartoon show, but he was an artist, and part of his TV show in between the cartoons was him painting. And if I remember rightly, it was a case of, very much 80s TV trickery, and he would take a wet brush. Oh, excuse me, good lord, I'm gassy today. Anyway, he would take a wet brush on a blank sheet of paper, and as he swept back and forth, this beautiful image would appear. And I was of the age where, when I got this magic brush set for Christmas, I honestly believed that by simply, using this brush, I would create these amazing lifelike images, whereas in actual fact, these were basically tubes of paint with a brush on the end. And that was it. I was extremely disappointed with this because, like I said, I was a very gullible child. And when I saw in the packet Rolf Harris Magic Brush, I thought, that's it. I'm just going to have to swipe back and forth on the page and a beautiful picture will appear. And as you can imagine, I took the magic brush, squeezed it, and a blob of paint came out, and I smeared it over the paper, and that was it. So that was very disappointing indeed. Now, Walkie Talkies. Again, possibly because I was gullible, but on the other hand, they were actually genuinely pretty awful. They were the way they were pictured in catalogues gave you the impression that these were indeed wireless CB radio type things, whereas in reality it was a couple of handsets connected with a cable. And the worst part was the cable was so damn short that no matter how far away you went, or you went to the fullest extent of the cable, you could still hear the person talking because you weren't that far away. And also back then, a lot of electronic toys, they just sucked through batteries. So it wouldn't even last that long when it was working. I mean, to get any sort of benefit from it, you had to basically go to a separate room of the house and have this cable tangling around all over the place, and press the button, have a quick conversation, and of course the sound quality was absolutely horrendous. But I always remember being hugely let down because in my mind I thought, wow, I'm going to get a CB radio. And no, I got basically a plastic handset with a long, or not even a long, with a cable on it that really didn't do its job properly. So very disappointing with those walkie-talkies. So now we're looking at the Spiderman Webmaker kit. And this was definitely a case of me being extremely gullible, but in my defense, I was very young at the time. So I remember getting this Spider-Man Webmaker kit, and in my head, I thought with this kit, I'm going to be able to swing from house to house and, attach it to a tree and swing about the place. Where the reality was, it was basically a tube of jizz with a little plastic holder and some tiny plastic characters. And all you would do is you would put the tube into this holder, attach it to your finger and squeeze, and it would basically, jizz out the end and cover these little plastic characters in goo. So honestly, what a letdown that was, especially when I'm thinking to myself, my God, I have Spider-Man's web making capability at my fingertips, and I had all these visions of myself, firing it up to the chimney stack of the house and swinging round the place. Nah, it was a tube of jizz. Terrible, terrible toy. So now we have more Transformers, believe it or not. This time it was the Jump Starters, Twin Twist and Top Spin. And this would have been the Christmas of, oh, fuck, I don't know, 85, 86 maybe? 85, I think. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, my mom knew I loved Transformers. And it was Christmas Day, and I knew that I was getting some Transformers, so extremely excited. And Christmas morning, opening the presents, and there they are, Twin Twist and Top Spin, and my heart just sank. Because I was aware of them, and in my mind, a Transformer was supposed to be part puzzle, part transforming toy. And of course, with the jump starters, there was no transforming involved. You pulled them back, they would ride forward and spring into life and change from, space vehicle into robot. And even then, it didn't really work that well. So, again, similar to the story about the T-Bob and Scott Tracker, I was of an age where I knew not to hurt other people's feelings. So I had to pretend I was happy with those, but trust me, I was anything but happy with those two Transformers. And finally, one of the most disappointing toys of my childhood was the Jabba the Hutt playset. Now this was Christmas of 1983, and all I wanted for Christmas that year was Star Wars. And in particular, I wanted the AT-AT or the Millennium Falcon, but I knew I wouldn't be getting those because my mum and dad, for some reason, deemed them not worth the money, but somehow getting 4 other vehicles was worth the money. But anyway, so I knew I was getting 4 smaller vehicles for Christmas that year. And I remember unwrapping the gifts, and I got the X-Wing, Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, and the Snowspeeder. So I was very, very happy with those. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I don't know what else this could possibly be. So I opened the last package, and there it was, Jabba the Hutt's playset. And I thought, good Lord, I didn't want this. But opened it up, got it out, and was immediately taken with the fact that it just didn't make sense to me. Even at 9 years old, I could see that this playset just did not make sense. The fact that Jabba was sitting on top of what is essentially the trapdoor to the Rancor pit. So when he's sitting on that, you couldn't open the trapdoors, but the trapdoors opened the wrong way. So even when you opened the trapdoors, there wasn't enough depth to put a Star Wars figure in. I mean, you could have him lying down, but what's the point in that? And it was basically this big, giant slug with a hookah. And yeah, she could twist his tail and make his head turn. But even then, I thought, what fun does this provide? And so, of all the vehicles and playsets I had as a child, this is the one that got the least attention from me. It was a major letdown. And, oh, excuse me, that's my Jabba the Hutt sound. And it was a letdown big time because I was all about putting my figures into the vehicles and, you know, making them fly through space and everything. And here I had basically a throne with a fat guy sitting on it, smoking his big doobie or whatever it was. Not really what a kid of 9 years old regarded as being a fun toy. Well, that's my opinion anyway. So that was the top 10, or not even top 10, but just 10 toys that were disappointing to me, especially. And like I said, part of it was me being gullible and just having ridiculous expectations, but some of these toys really were pretty bad. So, hope you enjoyed it. Do you agree with my choices? Let me know in the comments. And thanks for watching. Special thanks to the Patreons. And please like, please subscribe. And as always, stay tuned for more videos from All Things 80s.